We are finishing up a few more projects before we move into the new home that we built ourselves. In this episode, we will be installing baseboards, curtains, and appliances. Red will tell you more about that.
I'm just finishing up the milling on some of the baseboard. We're making our own baseboard pieces to keep costs low. Nothing fancy, just a rectangular profile with a 45-degree bevel. And I'm making these out of pine 2x4s, some brand new 2x4s and some just scraps of 2x4s. But in any case, I've just taken those 2x4 and ripped them down into 5/8 wide pieces, and then I've milled them down. And here I am sanding and applying the finish to them. We're finishing the boards with an aged wood accelerator to give them an old weathered look, and then sealing and finishing that with tung oil. We're installing baseboard in the areas of the house where we have the concrete floor, but in the earthen floor areas we didn't need any. The earthen floor comes up slightly above the level of the drywall sheeting and seals up against that drywall, and so all we need to do is come back and do a little cleanup and touch up with paint. April is working on the touch-up here, and as you can see, there's not really even a crack between the earthen floor and the wall, so it works out real well. We actually like the simple look of not having any unnecessary baseboard or crown trim, so we don't have any crown molding anywhere in the house, and we're using the least amount of baseboard molding that we can get away with. We just think it gives it a cleaner, more modern look. There was one place where April needed to do repairs, so she mixed up a batch of mud, and she's applying a little more of the earthen floor mixture to cover up this bit of conduit that was sticking up. It was kind of an awkward little piece that couldn't think of any great way to cover it other than just bringing the floor up and around it. And so April is doing some handwork here to mold this into place, and it actually turned out real nice. This conduit was supposed to come up on the inside of the wall, but I miscalculated when I did my original layout, so we had to work around it. While April's in the bedroom working on paint touch-up, I decided to go ahead and bring my equipment in and start getting set up to install that baseboard trim and also some trim around the closet in the bedroom there. While I was working on the baseboard trim, I also created a couple pieces of trim to trim out around that accent wall in the guest bedroom, and so I've cut those to length and I'm getting ready to go install those. I'd originally created some trim that we'd painted white for this, but didn't like that look, and so we decided to go ahead and create some more trim and dye it black, and really like that look a lot better. I did have to do a little bit of special milling to overcome a little step that we had on one side, but once that was done, fit into place and looked great. While I was there, I went ahead and installed the baseboard trim in the closet, and that finishes out this room. We went shopping at a local store that resells returned items to try to find some bargains for the house, and we found some nice stuff. We found some rugs and some really nice curtain rods, which I'm installing here. We're working in the guest bedroom here. I'm just working on installing those curtain rods, and now we're trying out some curtains that April ordered. April ordered a few curtains for the house, and then we also have quite a few curtains that we've kind of collected over the years, and so we're trying to use as many of the curtains that we already have as possible. And so we've been trying them out using different ones and different combinations to see what looks good. Fortunately, we have a variety, so it works out well. We can try out different colors and patterns and textures, and hopefully we'll have something that works. We really love how these earthen floors turned out in here. They have a beautiful color and texture. The cracks are just beautiful, and we really hate to cover it up, but we did want to put a rug in the bedrooms under the bed that kind of sticks out a little bit. This rug was a little bit bigger than we had wanted, but we found this rug at that resale place for 75% off, so it was a great deal, and it looks brand new, and we really love the color and pattern. So even though it was a little on the big side, we put it in, and we really like the look. April is doing a little vacuuming here to get rid of all the lint and stuff that comes on new rugs. It always is a bit of a challenge to, find something that's just perfect at one of these discount places. They have a limited selection, but we're happy to find one that would work out for us. It's kind of a fun challenge to make something work. Next, April is putting together a bed frame that we already had. We're just using some furniture and furnishings right now that we already had just to see how they look, and we'll decide later if we want to keep them there. But she's putting this bed frame together, and next she's going to be putting on some pads under the feet to protect the floors. That is one thing about the earthen floors in this house, is they need protectors under the feet of beds, chairs, tables, that sort of thing, so that they don't dent or scratch the floor. Well, this room is coming together nicely. It's nice to get a bed in here and kind of get a feel for how much room we have left in the rest of the room for furniture and other furnishings. We're moving on to the master bedroom now, and I'm working on installing a curtain rod over this large window. I'm just installing these slightly to the side and slightly above the top rail of this window opening where I know there's a stud. And we tried some white curtains on here to see how those looked. Have to think about that and come back to it later. It's been nice to have some extra curtains to try. We can just install one and leave it up for a while and see how we like it. And now moving on to the earthen floors in the master bedroom here, we needed to do something around this edge. This was the first room we did, and we didn't go all the way up to the drywall. We just went up to the lip of the footer, and so part of that footer is exposed since the footer was a little wide since we had originally designed this house for aircrete walls. And as you can see, that concrete doesn't match the earthen floor. We had to figure out something to do. We thought about using paint to try to match it, but weren't sure that that would work out. And then April found this paste wax. So this is a paste wax that has some dye in it to make it more of a walnut color, and it matched the floor perfectly. And so she just went over the edge with paste wax, and it blended it in better than I thought possible. It really looked nice. After that, April did a little paint touch-up on the walls, and then I installed the baseboard around the edge. And now moving on to these smaller windows in the master bedroom. These are really narrow windows, and we couldn't find any curtain rods that fit just right out of the box, and so I actually had to cut some down. So cut a couple down, installing those here. April is working on getting some curtains ready and trying to decide what to install here. While I'm putting these up, April is trying out different curtains. We decided we didn't love the white on the big window in here, so she has some others that we're about to hang and see how they look. The curtains that she's trying now have more of a silver tone, so we'll try those and see how those look. Those are looking pretty good. We'll see if that grows on us. And now I'm trying some on the small window. These are a little fluffy, a little light. I'm not sure these are going to work, so we ended up swapping those out with the white ones that we originally had on the big window, and those also blocked more sun, which we thought might be nice. So we'll see if we decide to keep those. And now we're moving on to the main living room. There's a lot of big windows to cover in here, and we bought a large selection of hardware and window coverings to try. These big windows are real important to our passive energy design. In the wintertime, the sun shines directly through these windows, and that sunshine helps heat the home in the wintertime. And so we need to be able to let that light in and to have good control over it, to block it out when we don't want it, to let it in fully the rest of the time. And so we considered different window treatment options. We had thought about putting in blinds, either vertical or horizontal, but we realized that if we did that, we would be adjusting them constantly throughout the day to let the sun in. As the sun moves across the sky, those blinds are going to be blocking out some or all of the direct light, and we didn't want that. And so we decided the best option for us would be curtains. They make them with these big metal grommets up top. They're really easy to move back and forth. You can just throw them open in the morning and let all that sunlight in. They don't block the sunlight during the day. Easy to close at night, so just a good option for us. We had a few curtain options to try here. Some had the grommets, some didn't, had some different colors. We weren't sure that they would work, but we decided to put them up and see how they looked and kind of go from there, get a feel for what might look nice in here. So it's kind of a learning process that we're feeling our way through. We're trying out different options. And then we moved over to the kitchen. I installed the curtain rod above the sink, and then I moved on to the windowsill while I was at it. I had prepped this and had it all cut to size and ready to go, just had to glue it and put it in place. This is the same oak that I used on the windowsills in the rest of the house. And now moving back to trim. There's some trim I wanted to start with around this accent wall. I needed to go around a cabinet with a piece, so I walked back to the shop to do a little work. I needed my circular saw to cut along the length, and then my little hand saw here to cut out the notches. I'm just trying to create out a little notch to go around the upper cabinet. Just needed to take about a ½ inch off. So I finished cutting that, and then I also cut to length the piece for the other side of that accent wall, and now I'm ready to go install those. The trim I'm using for this is some of the baseboard trim. It's the same trim as I made for the baseboard. It has that aged look, and it looks real nice up against the black. I didn't know how I'd like the aged brown against the black, but I think it's actually better than black on black, so I like the way that turned out. I moved on to the baseboard trim in the kitchen dining area. I really like putting up trim. It goes really fast, actually. It's a fun process for me, and just cutting in all the little notches, all the little pieces, putting that in. I've now finished up the baseboard in the bathroom as well and decided to go ahead and try some curtains up over the closet to see how those looked. We had some brown ones that we decided to give a try. It goes pretty good with this brownish, kind of a canvas colored wall. So we'll leave these up for a bit and see how they look. The bathroom's coming along nicely. You can see how the baseboard looks in there. Gives it a nice finished look. It really needed it. Well, I have the baseboards finished up in the kitchen and bathroom, and I'm doing a little cleaning here because we have some appliances that are coming in today. We had wanted to find used appliances, and so we spent a good bit of time looking for them. We made several trips to look at appliances that didn't work out. They weren't as advertised, or for whatever reason, it just wasn't working out for us, and so we decided to go new.
So our appliances are here. That's exciting. We had to wait a couple of weeks to get them in, but we're having them all delivered at the same time. So we have a refrigerator, a stove, a dishwasher, and a gas dryer. So excited to get those in, and hopefully we can start moving in. Although we're going camping this weekend with the kids, so maybe by next weekend we'll be able to get everything hooked up, get the front door on. So there's the front door. It's been working on getting it sanded. And excited to be moving in soon.
We shopped for used appliances until we ran out of time, and then we just had to go order some so that we'd have some appliances in when we got ready to move in the house. We ended up just going to the store and ordering all from the same place. We picked out kind of lower to mid-range appliances that were a good value, appliances that were rated really high, but were still a modest and reasonable price. This box that I'm handling here is a dishwasher. I'm actually really excited about this. It's a Maytag dishwasher that was on sale in our price range, rated really good. You can also see our stove, refrigerator, and gas dryer. I'm really excited to get these hooked up and going, but first we're going to go on a camping trip. Our grown children have been wanting to go camping before it gets too cold, so they made all the arrangements and we met them up at the forest campsite. We all camped that night around the campfire, and the next morning we got up and hiked to the top of Carr Peak. It was a beautiful time of year with lovely fall colors and really felt like we were up among the clouds. Well, back to work. I need to get these appliances installed. I decided to go ahead and start with the dishwasher. These are a pretty straightforward installation, not difficult, but there is quite a bit that you need to connect. You have to connect the power, the fresh water, and the drain. So once I had all those sorted and connected, I've scooted the dishwasher in place and I'm now mounting it to the underneath of the cabinet. Next up, I went into the bathroom to plug in and start up the hot water heater for the first time, since I'll need hot water to run the dishwasher. We gave that some time to heat up, and then we went through the startup process for the dishwasher that was detailed in the manual. More than a second between, then press button 2. Close the door and wait. Close the door and cycle start. Okay. The startup process is complete and it didn't detect any problems, so it didn't throw any faults, so it's ready to go. April immediately brought over some dishes from the RV to try it out. Next up was the refrigerator. It was much easier. April's already gone through and done everything on the inside. She removed all the plastic in there, did the shelves, wiped it all down, and got it ready to go. So I just had to remove the plastic on the outside and unhook the cord and plug it in. All right, here it goes. You want to, I guess, probably pretty close to that side. Leave most of the space. It's quite easy to move. Okay. It's supposed to be about an inch from the back, it says. We ordered some wax for the countertops, and that has come in, so I'm ready to apply it. I'm just applying it with a rag here. We wanted some more shine on the countertops. The oil finish has dried and cured completely, and it left more of a matte finish, and we really thought that having some kind of a sheen would be nice, and so the wax will provide that. The wax will also provide just another layer of protection, which we also wanted, so we're going to apply this and see how this works. It's going on pretty wet. I'm hoping it'll dry to more of a hard surface. The stove and the clothes dryer came set up for natural gas. That's the default, and I don't believe you can buy them already set up for propane. So we had to buy them set up for natural gas and then have them converted to propane. The stove is all set up and ready to go. Now I just need to go outside and make a permanent home for my propane tanks. We had originally planned to keep these propane tanks in this little garden shed, but some viewers mentioned that it might be difficult to get sufficient ventilation if there was a severe leak in the propane tanks, and if there wasn't enough ventilation, it could be fire or explosion hazard. So we don't want any part of that, so we decided to just go ahead and install these outside, and that way you don't have any problem with ventilation. I made a base for the tanks out of some old treated 4x4s just to get them off the ground, and then moved on to making a cover. I'm patterning these off of the cover that you can see on the RV in the back. They just put a little cover over the top to protect the valves and stuff up top, and so I'm following that same idea. I'm just making a wooden cover that'll cover the top part of the tanks, cover the valves and the hoses so they're not exposed to sun, but so that it can still vent out if there was a leak. And I'm just bringing it over to mount it to the side of my little garden shed here. Got all my tools rounded up, and I'm going to put on a bracket to mount it to. I need April to hold it on the outside while I go inside and screw it in from the inside. So April's giving me a hand here real quick. Now I have that secured, and I'm mounting the box to it. It'll just hold it at the back. I'm actually going to put a couple of bolts up through that bracket so that I can just slide this top on over those bolts, and that way it'll be, removable and quickly accessible. So I just got the top in place and then drilled down through the top and that bracket board that I've mounted underneath. Once that hole was there, I just needed to go through with a larger drill bit and make a little recession for the nut and washer that'll hold the bolt in place. Once I had that, I was able to bolt the bolt to this board, and then it just stays there, and the bolts stick up a couple of inches. And I'm just making sure that's good and secured. That'll stay in place and won't have to do anything to that. And then the top just slides on. I probably won't use a nut or anything to hold this on. Just the weight of the top pulling against the wall holds it in place just fine. Of course, I'll need to come back and paint and weatherize this later. Well, the kitchen is really coming together. I'm working on mounting a rod over the pantry. We did have a tension rod here, but didn't like how that was working out, so we decided to mount a curtain rod up here and mount the curtain to it. April's also been working hard getting everything ready. She's been putting the shelf liner in on all the shelves and drawers in this kitchen. We really love how all this is coming together. The wax has been drying on these countertops for a day or two now, and so I'm going through and wiping and buffing. It didn't dry as hard as I expected it to, so I'm getting a little wax off on my rag, and it doesn't feel completely dry, so we'll see how this wax turns out. We may try a different product, or this may dry more and end up being a surface that we're pleased with. The last appliances were the washer and dryer. The dryer is already all hooked up for me, and so I just need to install the washer. First thing I tackled was the drain, just needed to make a few plumbing modifications and get ready to receive the washer. We are reusing our old washer, and it's located in the well house, so we went over to get it. When we first moved out here, the only structures on the property were the barn and the well house, and we really needed a washer. It was a high priority for us, so in the very first week I got this washer set up and working in the well house, so it's been really nice to have, and we've had it since basically week 1. There are certain times when it starts to feel real that you're about to move into this new place that you built, and this is one of those times. It really feels like a momentous occasion to be bringing this washer over from the well house and putting it in our new home. A funny thing that worked out, our old washer perfectly matches our new dryer. That was completely unintentional. We just bought a dryer that ran on propane and that worked, but they happen to be exactly the same model, and they're an exactly matching pair, so that was fun. Glad that worked out. I might also mention the reason we decided to get another dryer. We wanted to switch to propane because our old one was all electric, and it took the entire output of our system to run the electric dryer on full heat mode. And so we haven't been doing that. We've just been running it on air dry. And usually that's sufficient. April just hangs the clothes anyway, but it would be nice to have the option to use heat occasionally on clothing. But it totally would make sense to upgrade our entire system so that we could have an electric dryer. So the best choice was just to go ahead and install a propane dryer instead. April plans to air dry our clothing most of the time. We have a nice setup in here to do that. But even if we were to dry all of our clothing with the propane dryer, the yearly cost in propane would still be very small. And if you compare the yearly cost in propane to the cost of upgrading the system sufficiently to run a 6,000 to 10,000 watt dryer, it would never pay it off. It would take a lifetime and probably then some to pay for the solar system upgrade, and so it just didn't make sense at all. Especially for the small amount that we use it, it just made the most sense to us to use propane. We had one more thing we needed to do before we were ready to move in. We needed to remove the paper from the floor in the master closet and bathroom, and then put in the baseboard in those areas. I'm ready to install the baseboard in here now, but unfortunately I'm out of baseboard. I had made up, I believe, 15 to 17 boards of baseboard, and I thought that would be plenty, surely. But it wasn't. It wasn't even close to enough. It was just enough to get the kitchen, dining room, and guest bath done. And so I had to go through the entire process again to make up a new batch. I cut 10 or 12 more boards, went through the entire process of sanding, aging, and finishing, and finally the installation. The installation didn't take near as long as the prep for the wood. It went really fast, but it's installed, and although there's still a lot more to do on the house, we're ready to move in.
So exciting day out here. It is October 20th, and some of the kids are going to come over, and we are going to move in and get all of our stuff over here.